I'm your host, Carmilla, and this is Cat Scratch Radio, a horror podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Cat Scratch Radio. I'm your host, Carmilla Mays, and I'm here with author Thomas R. Clark. So Thomas, tell me about yourself.
Hi, Carmela.
Hi.
Tell you about me. I'm a writer. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm the senior columnist for a new magazine called Memento Mori Inc. that's coming out from Crystal Lake in a couple of weeks. I DJ. I'm a musician. I'm a writer. Blah blah blah. That's me. That's me in a nutshell.
Okay, so I ask everybody when they come on the show, what's your favorite scary movie?
My favorite scary movie? Well, my favorite horror movie is The Endless. But the movie that probably scared me the most my entire life is Prophecy, only because of the scene where the kid gets smacked by the mutant bear in his sleeping bag. And that was in the trailers that I got to see back in 1979 when that came out. Or maybe
wow.
John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh yeah, The Thing's
Maybe it's a tie
one.
for those two, because that movie is just terrifying.
Yeah.
But as far as scary movies, being scared is subjective, I think.
Oh, definitely.
It depends on the person and their environment and their background. I'm very claustrophobic, so The Descent terrifies me. It's one of my top 5 scariest movies of all time.
One of my very close friends just wrote a book that deals with a monster in tunnels, and it's very similar to The Descent. It is very spooky.
Did they express to you the challenge that they had of trying to build the feelings of claustrophobia?
I think that they deal with some claustrophobia themselves, so I think it was easy for them.
So we write what we know.
Yeah.
we certainly do.
So we know that there's our fair share of bad and ugly in the horror community. What can you tell me about the good in the community?
Yeah, because I think that too many of these bad apples get too much of a spotlight shined on them when they're outed, which we do need to do. They do need to be exposed, and they do need to be rooted out. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the victims that get lost. And when we do that, because we mention the person who gets that's the aggressor quite often than the person who was the victim. I just say we get away from all of that and just talk about the good people out there.
Yeah, I definitely think that there are some really good people, especially in the indie community.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
Yeah, Armand Rosamilia comes right off the top of my head. What a wonderful person he is. He has given me so much great advice over the years. He's never steered me wrong. What more can I say about him and his association with another mutual friend who passed away, who was also a great person in this community, was Jay Wilburn. He's missed every day. Every day something bad happens, or we get some bit of drama in our community, I go, what would Jay say? How would Jay react to this? That's what I try to look at things as.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, because Jay would usually take 24 hours to a week to reply on something. If it was still relevant after a week, then it was worth his time.
That makes sense.
Yeah. When we walk down the street, we see a pile of crap there? Do we walk through the crap, or do we walk around it?
Yeah, good point.
I guess it depends on the person. I'm going to be obstinate today. I'm going to step in the crap.
I think with some of the bigger issues we've had, like with what was his name, Otis Bateman. We forget to mention that, especially in those cases, like women are being targeted, and these women get brushed under the rug is just borderline just, oh well, they're victims, and we focus on the bad of what happened. We focus on the people. And
as much as they're victims, I don't think that I want to give attention to the fact that they were exposed either.
Yeah, true.
To me, that seems a little counterproductive. Yes, we want to recognize that these people were abused and that they were victims of somebody that did horrible things. But I know that it's almost embarrassing sometimes for some of these people to come out and speak about it, because they gave somebody something in confidentiality.
Yeah.
The women that shared photos with Stephen and with Otis, they gave them to them in confidentiality,
Hmm.
with the assumption that it would remain between them. Well, now we know, it remain between them and Dropbox.
Yeah. It's very
It's such a
unfortunate.
shame. Such a shame. But we have seen this constantly on the larger stage with porno videos that between celebrities that were released, and we saw what happened with those too. People got sued and people went to jail
Yeah,
because again, it was a break of the confidence between you and the person that you were sharing that with.
I definitely agree. But on the topic of positive things, who are some of your favorite horror authors?
Right now,
Yeah.
right now, out of the recent crop of people that I have met since I have become a creator myself, gosh, where do I start? Right now, I'm really digging J.F. Dubois. He's a French Canadian guy. His book, The God in the Shed and Song of the Sandman, are really good. They're part of a trilogy. I enjoy those. Other writers that are really good right now. Oh gosh, Candice Nola. Come on. If anybody says anything poorly about Candice Nola, they need to really rethink how they think. Because that woman has done nothing but good things for this community and for people of color in this community too. Um, she's wonderful. Another Wiley Young, I love him. I love Christopher Triana. Uh, there's an expansive list here, Carmela. You're asking me to name all my friends. Is what you're doing. Now people that I'm not as much of a friend with that I think are really positive people in this community. Gabino Iglesias.
Oh, absolutely.
His
Definitely agree.
TikToks, and I was blessed with being able to talk to him at Nikon this year and express to him how his TikToks make my day. Because he
Mm,
says what I want to say, but I really shouldn't be saying. 'Cause
yeah. I follow
he,
him I follow him on Twitter. We're mutuals on Twitter. And I just he is such a positive role for the entire community.
yep, absolutely is, and people should listen to what he says.
I
You
agree.
know, the whole thing with diversity, and that's one of his big things that he pushes for is diversity. And hashtag, we'll talk about Tom Monteleone in a minute. One of the things that I love about this new era that we're in, and I think it's one of the reasons that I'm able to contribute to it, being, I'm unique in that I am an old man that is just starting.
Mm,
So, I'm Brian Keene's age, but I am Brian Keene if he didn't do anything right when he started.
okay.
So it took me 20 years to get to where I am now, or 30 years. We'll call it that. It took me 30 years to get to where I am now. So I've had this luxury of being able to see people come before me and what they do and be able to follow in their footsteps. And that's pinnacle right there with my growth. Because I get to see what people like Gabino say. I got to listen to the horror show with Brian Keene and Brian outing all the awful people and the
Yeah.
awful publishers in the industry. I
Yeah.
learned.
It definitely seems like another publisher goes down the drain every week or so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. But getting back to the diversity thing, I love this because now I get to tell stories that have been told before, but from different cultural points of view. And I can do that by talking to people from different cultures, talking to people from different lifestyles, learning from them. When I do that, it makes me a better person. And that allows my fiction to be more accessible to more people.
That reminds me of, I'm not sure where it's at that it's located, but there is a library where you can check out people, or you sit down with somebody and they tell you their life story.
Oh, yeah, I've
And
seen videos about
yeah,
those. Yes.
and I think that is just one of the most amazing things that somebody could do to widen their perspective as just a human being, especially I'm biracial native. I'm Anishinaabe on my dad's side, but I'm white passing. Like, so my cultural experience is mostly that my native name gets me into a lot of nonsense with people, but my overall experience is that of a white person's. So
So
for
you've seen
me,
life through a bit of a lens of privilege, then, is what you're
yeah,
trying
from
to
yeah,
explain.
a little bit of a privileged point of view, and I also I'm middle class, so I have that privilege too. So it's like
Same here.
I I like being able to learn about other people and their experiences and what they've gone through.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't made mistakes along the way.
Oh,
If I
absolutely.
hadn't if I had unintentionally or intentionally, as the case may have been, insulted somebody or said something horrible to people or done something horrible to people. We've all had these moments in our lives that, if this was the MCU, a variant of us would go off that would be evil. And then you'd be the person that learned from that and was good. I really liked the book Dark Matter from Blake Crouch
Hmm.
and the TV show, because what it showed in that was, what Blake was trying to do with that was the same thing that the writers of Lost tried to do with that, to show that people are inherently good.
Yeah, I
Um,
think at our core.
at our core, we're inherently good, and that's the whole core of Dark Matter, is that Jacob or Jason is inherently good, no matter who he is, from whatever reality that he spurned from. The bottom line is, even though he does awful things at sometimes, he's still a good person in a way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that makes that show and that book so good, because you realize all you gotta do is be nice. You're nice, things work out, you know?
Yeah, I think that trying to be a good person and trying to correct things that you've done
Mm-hmm.
and like knowing that you've made mistakes in your past and trying to correct those and moving forward and trying to be a more positive person. I think that's all you really got to do is just try to be good. And more times than not, you're going to end up being good. You're going to be
Yeah,
being nice, you know?
yeah, that's it. And you know what happens? Strangely, when you're nice, people want to work with you.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that happens.
So true.
Yeah. And this, I'm going to say this. This goes not just to the writers out there. It goes to the reviewers and the readers out there. We're three different beasts that work together.
Hmm.
All right. We're all autonomous. Reviewers, are autonomous in what they do. Readers are autonomous in what they do. And we're autonomous in what we do because we write for ourselves. We're blessed when one of the other two groups finds what we write. We feel even more blessed with one of them is vocal about it, because that can help read to more one of the other groups. So we're a symbiotic beast, but we're three heads on a hydra.
Oh yeah.
On the same token, we're all the same monster, but we're three different heads. So we have to remember, as writers, we have to be kind to reviewers if they give us bad reviews, to readers if they tell us they don't like what we write. My own personal experience from this was, back when I was younger, there was no internet. So if you wanted to be that guy, you had to go down to the library and get Who's Who in America. So I would go down to the library and get Who's Who in America, and I would write writers and movie makers and musicians and stuff like that. And I wrote coked up Stephen King a trolley letter telling him how much I did not like the Dead Zone.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you know what? Coked up Stephen King was kind enough to reply to me nicely. So if coked up Stephen King can reply to a 14-year-old troll nicely, we
Yeah,
can all be nice to everybody in this community.
I definitely agree. And I I just don't a lot of people in the horror community, we come from backgrounds of trauma. And so in my opinion, we should already have that level of empathy that comes with the horror community. Like, as a whole, when you write horror, there's a level of empathy going on with whether your character is estranged or
Mm-hmm.
what they're going through. You have to have some form of empathy for the character.
Correct.
And I just feel like with how many people are drawn to the horror community because of trauma and because of empathy, that we shouldn't be having as much negative, like, bad apples as we do, and yet here we are.
Let's talk about Tom Monteleone now. The very first book I can remember obsessing with when I was in grade school was somewhere around 1974, 1975. This book called More Science Fiction Tales. And I got myself a copy of it, and I kept taking it out of the library and read that book and read every story in that book over and over and over and over and over again. Flash forward 40 some odd years. Here I am starting out in my writing career, and I meet Tom Monteleone at a Scares at Caravan. And at this time, he wasn't outed as a bigot. He was actually, revered as a sage in this community. Because he was. He really was. And he did a live reading where he talked about how journalists can write, but they can't tell stories. And at the time, I was just a journalist. So I went to his table and I said, Mr. Monteleone, you haven't done much to inspire me today. And he says, oh, no. I've seen what you've done. You can write. You can tell a story. Oh, well, thank you. So here I am, this cathartic moment. This man whose book I idolized gives me a compliment. And it's at that point that I actually learned that he wrote that book. It was the first book Tom Monteleone ever wrote.
Oh, wow.
It was a collection of short stories for children, and all the pen names in it, all the other character people were family members of his. He just used their names.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So the last Scares That Care charity weekend, the first author con Tom appeared at, and I was able to get a copy of that book signed by him. And then about a year later, he had that meltdown.
Ooh.
Yeah. That really was a gut punch to me, because I looked up to this man my entire life without realizing. One of the reasons that I wrote and I write today is because of this bigot. And it's almost shameful for me to hear and to read the words he said and hear what he said on podcasts since the fallout.
Yeah.
It's just awful. It's awful. It's like Archie Bunker went bad instead of getting good, because Archie started out bad, and at the end of All in the Family and all that, he was meathead finally. He was open-minded and empathetic by the end of that series.
Yeah.
And Tom Monteleone is the exact opposite. It blows my mind how so many of these writers who come from a time period when they were rebels and they were very liberal at that time have become such conservative, close-minded asshats.
Yeah.
I'm mind blown. It's perplexing to me. I don't get it. You're so educated that you became that dumb?
Yeah.
Because the last I checked, the more educated you get, the smarter you get, the gayer you get, everything you get. I'm serious.
As far as
the more liberal you get, the more everything.
Yeah, especially if you go to college.
Yeah. That's why they said, don't send your kids to college. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Right.
My favorite thing on TikTok and YouTube right now is that history professor from Austin University, Roy Kasanga. I love his videos. I'm a history nut, and to have a professor give a lecture on YouTube for me to watch a 2-hour-long lecture, that's wonderful. Guy's got his thing going. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I actually love that Brandon Sanderson does that too. He posts all of his lectures on YouTube. I
pray that nothing ever bad happens with him, because he has been the saving grace of all writing lately.
He's such a sweet man. A couple of my friends have met him in person, and he is just genuinely like that. He's just a sweet guy. And I know that he came out some years back.
He went to bat for all of us with KDP and Audible.
Yeah, well, because I think he self-publishes as well as...
That's why, because they were going to give him the same shitty deal that they give all of us, and he was like, oh, no, and none of them get that deal anymore either. You're fixing it. That's why I get more money off my audiobooks now.
Yeah, and for a guy who comes from the LDS Church, who's Mormon,
Hmm.
he is very progressive. He's written at length about how, you know, he, he thinks that it's very possible that some of his characters could be bi, and if readers read him that way, then they read him that way. And he spoke at length about how Dumbledore being gay, his only problem with it was that there was nothing in the literature that led to like believing that. Um, but
Yeah, I've heard his arguments on that. Yeah,
yeah, but J.K. Rowling is one of the topics
she's
I
a
read.
repulsive person.
Yeah, yes, she
And what makes
is.
me even more angry with her is her side project there, her little crime thrillers she writes
Mm-hmm.
are all based off of Blue Oyster Cult music. And they're one of my favorite bands of all time. All right. So it sends a shiver up my spine of anger whenever I listen to a Blue Oyster Cult song, because I know somewhere J.K. Rowling's probably listening to that song, writing a bad book about it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I mean this in the most polite way possible. She cannot write. Her writing
No,
is
she can't.
atrocious. I don't know how she got published, and I definitely read her books as a kid. I grew up on them. Give you my age, basically.
Well, the same can be said for Stephanie Meyer and for Dan Brown.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at what they did, they wrote simplistically.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the things that we face, a challenge that we face as creators, is what reading level do we want to write at?
Yeah,
And we have to think about it. It's about an eighth grade reading level, and that sucks.
And that's because that's the level that of education that really performs, to say the least, in
Right.
our world.
Yeah, that's true. It is true. It's just mind blowing.
It really is.
We're supposed to be educated, but we're not. And I guess maybe the current political situation is a result of that as well.
I would say so. I really think so.
With the mass propagation of conspiracy theory.
There's definitely always been conspiracy theories, but wow.
Yeah, but it used to be urban legend. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
In the past 8 years, we have seen urban conspiracy theory change from being urban legend to being a tool of nationalism.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And there's, if you think about it, if you go back, maybe there was a precedence to that during World War II with Hitler trying to find all these occult items.
Mm-hmm.
There's an eerie parallel there, I think. Now I've always thought that ancient alien theory was a fantastic fiction, I mean, inspirational fiction. Is it racist? Yeah. But when I try to look at it from the Battlestar Galactica point of view, because that's my favorite TV show. And let's get back to Sanderson. Glenn Larson, who created Battlestar Galactica, is Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And Battlestar Galactica was inspired by Mormon myth.
Yeah, Twilight was too.
Yeah, and so is Twilight. Most recent season of The Mandalorian, the last 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, they are heavily fundamental Jewish, with everything that goes in there. You can't escape religious influence in fiction. It's there. My books, you're going to get positive pagan religious viewpoints, And I think this is great because you get to see how other people think because of it. Mm-hmm. So I don't look at it as a negative. I look at it as a positive. Because again, we write what we know. So we put that into our fiction.
I grew up Mormon, and I'm an ex-Mormon now, but
weren't digging being pregnant for eternity?
No, there was this. At one point, they brought the boys in that were going on mission who were like 18, And I remember being maybe 16 at the time, and they were like, get a good look at these girls. And it's like a group of girls from 14 to 16. And they're like, because those are the group of girls you're going to marry when you get back. And something in my head was just like, that doesn't sound right. And so I was like, I'm not going to be just married off. Sorry.
I don't blame you.
And so I fell away from the church because of that. And it was probably the best thing I ever did for myself, honestly. That's my personal decision. But now I write a lot of religious trauma characters, and I write a lot of gothic horror because of it.
There you go.
Yeah,
It
because
influenced you.
That influence is there.
Mm-hmm. And you know, your fears that you have from that era lend to your prose too, because when you put it in your you tend to put that in your fiction, like we were saying earlier about PTSD and it affecting somebody, how they write.
Yeah.
Same thing here.
Yeah. Speaking of influence, though, who should my audience be like seeking out on social media in the community, you think?
For positive.
For positive community.
For positive, R.J. Rolls, the guy from Books of Horror, from the Ashes Press. That's his. R.J. started Books of Horror. So yeah, he's definitely a positive person in the community to reach out to. Right now, he's recovering from a rather nasty car accident.
Oh wow!
Yeah, right off the bat, Mike Edenbach. He's another great positive force in this community. Daniel J. Volpe, Aaron Beauregard. Those are all positive people in this community. I already mentioned Candace Nola, Jeff Strand, Bridget Nelson, positive people in this community. These are people that the good guys are out there. They're all out there. You just have to know where they are. I mean, let me look at my friends list here. Let me see if I can give you some more names. Oh, Patrick Freewald. I can't tell you how much he may be snarky on the HWA page a little bit, but he's a brilliant man, and he'll never give you bad advice, ever. And if he disagrees with you, remember this guy's a scientist and a school teacher. Mm-hmm. So if he says something to you, reevaluate what you said if he disagrees with you, because you're probably wrong. You're definitely probably wrong. Oh, Jason Nickey's a great guy. He's fantastic. A lot, for as much as they say, the extreme horror and the splatterpunk community has got all these awful people, and some of the best people are in that community. In that, I come from that.
Yeah, I agree. I've met a lot of really great authors through the splatterpunk community, actually. So I don't personally write splatterpunk, but I enjoy it. So
yeah, our stories are basically, they're Grimm's fairy tales with, covered in blood and guts.
Yeah,
and maybe with quite a bit more sex than you would expect.
I was surprised by the amount of spice in splatterpunk books when I first started reading them, but I can see where sex and blood and guts and everything.
Well, that comes from the first splatterpunk book, the book that was officially a splatterpunk book, and that was The Light at the End from Skip Inspector. And the vampire character in that, Rudy, is raped by Dracula.
Oh, basically. Wow.
Well, the master. They don't call him Dracula. He's the master.
Well, we all know who the master is.
The master is always Dracula.
Yeah.
And it's an uncomfortable scene to read. It's not sexy in any manner.
And it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And the boys, they wrote it fantastic. The Boys was the name given to John Skip and Craig Spector as a team collectively back in the day. But yeah, you should check that out. That book right there, that lays the established floor plan for what most splatterpunk stories have. There's some sex in it. There's a lot of gratuitous violence. There's a positive message that's given.
I love that. Speaking of positive messages, how do you think we can make a more positive change in our community, like at a personal level?
I don't want to say gatekeeping, but we need to be more cognizant of the red flags
Mm,
before they become a problem. So we need to be more looking for and be more diligent and vigilant in the people that we invite to collaborate with us, the people that we accept into anthologies,
hmm
the people that we network with. We have to
Yeah.
we have to be aware of it. We have to be more aware of it. Now, often, we know how it is. These villains, we don't know they're villains until they expose themselves, unfortunately. So we just
Yeah.
have to learn to watch for the warning signs. Are those warning signs or content of their books? I can't say it is,
No, I think
because
that that's hard
yeah,
because
that's what a lot of people are going to say. That that, well, look what they wrote. They wrote about getting raped in a van. It has nothing to do.
mm,
That art does nothing to do with his psychosis.
do you know who Lee Bardugo is?
Whom?
Lee Bardugo?
I do not know.
So she's a more modern author. She wrote Ninth House and Hellbent. They're a dark academia horror novel series, and the third book is supposed to come out sometime in the future. And she wrote a rape scene where the main character gets raped by a ghost, and it is very uncomfortable to read. And she got a lot of backlash from this, and people were saying that she was like glorifying rape and victim blaming.
I've
And
got friends that write dark romance that would laugh at that
yeah,
because that's all NC stuff, non-consent.
mhm,
Um, there's a large market for NC romance, dark romance.
yeah,
So you're the she's probably going, I'm doing what I want. I got people talking about me.
yeah. And Lee Bardugo came out and said very fully, she said, I have a history of sexual assault. This was my way of coping with that.
Hey, that's fine too.
Yeah,
That's what I say about my dark humor.
yeah.
That's my excuse for my dark humor. So that's a good one. That's a good thing to say. She's
So
not lying.
she's not. No, she's coming from a place of honesty, and I think that's genuine.
Mhm.
So to wrap things up, where do you think you see horror as a genre going in the next 5 years?
Well, it depends on the next election. And the reason
Yeah,
I
good
say
point.
that, the reason I say that is horror traditionally does really well when there is political unrest.
Hmm.
We've had political unrest for the past decade.
We sure have.
I think that if what, I don't think it matters who wins because it's still going to cause political unrest
It is.
from one side or the other. And horror, ultimately, a lot of the stories are a metaphor for what goes on in the real world.
Hmm.
So you're going to see a lot of more diversity if Harris wins. I think.
I
I
would
think
love
that
to see more
I would
diversity
see
in
a
horror.
lot more. Well, we're fighting for it. We're pushing for it. We need more Roland Berseys, more Candice Nolas,
Hmm.
more Royal Puffs. More people from from different backgrounds, different cultures, different beliefs. We need more of them. Instead of people that look like me.
Yeah, and I agree. Uh, I want to see more people. I would love to see more biracial people writing about biracial experiences because
Yeah, because they have a hard
it's
time.
it is it's very hard because I'm too white for one side of my family, and I look too native for the other side of my family,
Well, that's a
and
big point. Did you watch last season of True Detective?
I did not.
That's a big point of that story.
I'll have to watch it, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
yeah, I think that's something I would love to see, especially in horror, is more because horror is so character driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just love to see more of everything, and not
There's
just
no
the
point in killing somebody if you don't make somebody feel for them, because then the
exactly.
death means nothing. The death is senseless.
Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on the show, Thomas. I had a great time. This was a really positive interaction for me. And
It was buckle that Facebook conflict algorithm and be nice.
yeah. So where can my viewers, or not my viewers, I'm sorry, where can my audience find you?
ThomasRClark.com. Best place to find me. I'm also on social media, Tommy Clark. As my regular profile. That's the one I prefer to use. I've got an author profile too. I don't do Twitter anymore because I just got tired of it.
That's valid.
I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. Thomas bottom score R bottom score Clark on the Instagram, and token bottom score Tom on TikTok.
Very cool. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Carmela, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great. You've been listening to Cat Scratch Radio, a forward podcast with your host, Carmilla Mays, also known as Matu C. Lawrence. If you want to find me on social media, just look up MX Carmilla.